welcome to This Is. Let's talk about some weird game cartridges from my childhood. Robopon!
What?
I wanted to do this video just so I had an excuse to be on canon talking about Robopon on This Is. So this is my favorite Pokemon clone. If you want a really cool robot that's just named Ralph, this game's got it for you. This guy here was originally released in 2000 in North America. This is for Game Boy Color specifically.
Sure.
And this is the first cartridge to have a built-in clock and had a little battery in it that you could actually change out. You see the little door on it. Also featured a nifty little thing called GB Kiss, which was a way to trade wirelessly through infrared between games.
GB Kiss.
Yeah, they called it GB Kiss.
That sounds like something you get after you have too many GB Kisses.
This is from Atlas, the developers of Persona. So why would they not have a weird ass thing where you kiss Game Boys? My favorite part about this is it also had a speaker in it.
Why?
So, because again, when there's time-based things, because it's Atlas, of course it takes place in a school. So like at the end of the day, a chime would start going off. Keep in mind, you don't need to have this on.
So the cartridge by itself will still make a noise.
It just starts chiming, and there's no way to turn it off.
Did anyone actually play this? Did anyone actually buy this?
I owned it. I
did?
Yeah. So I had this exact version, which was the Sun version.
This is wacky and weird. But Matt, you know what's even wackier and weird than Robopon? Sonic and Knuckles.
Yeah.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
It's basically like a real-life ROM hack that you can just... The idea with this was that this was the only Genesis cartridge that actually ever had that lock-on tech to actually combine two together.
This was an interesting one because, again, you're literally plugging this into another cartridge.
Well, what's weird is it worked with both Sonic 2 and Sonic 3, which essentially would just allow you to play as Knuckles. It's a weird idea that you're like sort of... It's DLC, but...
Yeah, so you plug the cartridge into the...
Knuckles.
And
Knuckles into Genesis.
Yeah.
And then... Knuckles and Genesis into your 32X.
I love Sega. I was
and
so
jealous. It's a wonder why Sega does not make consoles
anymore. I was
anymore.
so jealous of all the Sega cool stuff because this was like, you wanted a gamer rig. Back in the day, Sega was the one to do it, and I never got to have it. But you know what I did get to have? Okay. All right. The 369, nice. In one. This came out for Game Boy Advance in 2015.
Why would you buy a bunch of games, Matt?
Yeah.
You can just buy 369 in one.
Well, the main thing was only 22 of these were actual Game Boy games. I'm pretty sure that one of them on here was our favorite, Super Mario 14.
That was the best of the Super Marios. They all went downhill after that.
There's also one that's quite cursed. It's called Kirby's Nuts.
But the thing is, so supposedly almost all of the 369 were just NES games that were probably hardly emulated at all since it was running on a Game Boy Advance. You can still buy this though.
Yeah, you can go on Amazon right now.
Don't do that though.
What's wrong, Bessie? You've barely played with Kirby's Nuts. Moving on.
Thank you to Niu for sponsoring today's video. Today we're looking at the BQi-C3 Pro. It is unbeatable for e-bikes in its price range with a 750 watt max rear wheel drive, which gives you all the juice you need with speeds up to 28 miles per hour and an impressive 62 mile range.
Don't get me to work.
You also can use that power however you want with both throttle as well as pedal assist.
And you can extend that range even further using their dual swappable lightweight batteries. And you can even charge one of them while using the other one. Plus, you never have to worry about replacing a chain because it comes equipped with a Gates Drive carbon belt and will never snag on your clothes.
And it also sounds cool.
You don't have to roll up your pants for this one.
This bike is about as comfy and stable as you'll ever find. It has a step-through design which makes it extra easy and safe to get on and off. And it's also got a gear rack and a 287-pound carrying capacity. You just won't find this form factor and power for anyone else at this price point. And Niu is so confident they'll give you a 2-year warranty.
So be sure to check out the BQi-C3 Pro in the description to learn more and get yours today. And huge shout out to Niu for sponsoring today's video.
The EA Genesis yellow tabs. Now, I know these.
Yes.
So there's a whole story behind this. It's easy to forget that in the early days of video games,
It was a lawless land.
It was the Wild West, right?
E.T.
So you could make, well, no, E.T. was an actual licensed game, but like you could basically, if you had the technical know-how, you could create a game for a console. Sega or Nintendo wouldn't actually be able to make the money. Whereas obviously now, any game you buy for a console, Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo are going to take a cut of it, right? All of the EA games for the Genesis had that yellow tab because they didn't actually have the license from Sega and actually went into court, and this was a whole thing. EA reverse engineered the developers' tools, and they basically just completely created all of their own Genesis games. But surprise, surprise, EA and Sega actually did come to terms and get this all sorted. Which is interesting because you can imagine if this would have gone another way, we would have Nintendo out here making Xbox games on the down low. Or we'd have Kratos running around on a Master Chief.
I mean, that's just Fortnite.
Yeah,
you
right.
literally just described
I
Fortnite.
I did do that.
Super Noah's Ark 3D came out in 1994 for the Super NES. It was originally developed as a Hellraiser game with the Wolfenstein engine for NES with extra power in the cartridge. Basically, this was Doom, but it was in development hell for a while and. Yeah.
Hell.
Well, so the Lord said, let there be a flood
of unlicensed, terrible Nintendo games.
So they basically just reskinned it to be a Christian game, which was not in any way, shape, or form licensed by Nintendo. The fun fact about it is you needed a real licensed SNES game in order to play it. You put this cartridge in the system, but it wouldn't actually recognize it as anything.
So you put an actual SNES game in.
Yeah, and then it would just ignore the real cartridge and play this thing. Just like Noah's Ark, you had to get 2 of these in order for it to work.
If you don't subscribe to this, we will personally flood your house and make you live on an ark for 100 days and 100 nights.
Listen, Jeremiah, we know you're hovering over there on the subscribe button.
Press
Just
it.
Click it.
And the ring-a-ling of the ding-a-ling. Boktai, the sun is in your hand. Matt, have you ever had the sun in your hand?
Yeah.
Was it hot?
It was a little bit.
Was it as hot as Kirby's nuts? Got him! So, Boktai, the sun is in your hands. Brought to you by the mad lad himself, Kojima. Before he was, making Death Stranding, he made a Game Boy game.
Death Stranding.
Was this really?
Makes as much sense.
I've never played this game before, but the idea is that it's one of those sort of weird cartridges that had a bunch of extra stuff on the top. Essentially, it was a light sensor.
Yeah.
So you walked out into the sun and obviously you need to be out in the sun anyway to play a Game Boy because
yeah, you
can't see that.
You can't see that screen otherwise.
But essentially, it would recharge your weapons and allow you to advance in the game.
I love the idea of just gamers need to touch grass. Here we go. Guitar Hero on tour. Have you ever wanted to play Guitar Hero but didn't want that whole pesky TV?
Or guitar?
Thank God to this attachment for the Nintendo DS. It was a cartridge that had a fingering board and a little...
Sorry. Hold on. Rephrase that, please.
It was a cartridge with a fingerboard.
No. Hello, Austin and Matt here with the PSA. Would you like carpal tunnel? Because this is the way to get it.
You could play it like this, but you look weird.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I'm shredding it. So, of course, this was back in the hype of Guitar Hero, of course, Rock Band. They wanted to try to make a mobile version. And surprise, surprise, the DS actually had some major advantages. It had a touchscreen, so you could actually strum the screen and immediately scratch it up.
Yep.
And you had the Game Boy Advance port, which was typically used to play Boktai, The Sun is in Your Hand, obviously. The problem, though, was that this is almost immediately useless because the DSi came out, dropped the Game Boy Advance port, and then you couldn't play Guitar Hero on tour.
Also, people forget that one of the things that made Guitar Hero so fun was playing with friends. Everyone go over in the corner and just do this for a while. Having it on the TV, you're in your parents' basement. You're having a big old 2-liter of Mountain Dew. You got your bag of Cheetos, and you guys are playing with the friends.
The game Genie!
Basically what this was a way to hack ROMs and enter cheat codes.
Yeah. But essentially it would unlock a ton of additional features. So you could literally go in and by punching in a certain code, set your lives to 99. So Nintendo got very mad.
Nintendo getting mad about something?
They got mad.
No.
Now, to be fair, these no longer exist, mostly because I think console makers have realized that they can just lock things down.
Imagine if these existed now, there'd be no incentive to ever buy skins or whatever because you could just, unlock them through something like this.
You hook up your Game Genie and you unlock all your V-Bucks.
The Game Boy camera.
This was not weird. This was good. The Game Boy camera revolutionized the world with a digital camera.
One of the first selfie cameras.
Yeah, so basically, this is a cartridge that would plug into your Game Boy, and you could basically rotate the camera around. Now, I don't remember the resolution off the top of my head, but it was like 11.
0.0
1.14 megapixels.
There you go.
It's 128 by 128.
This video could be 128 by 128. Maybe YouTube will start charging you for 144p videos. So you could do a bunch of stuff with this. Not only could you connect it to the Game Boy printer, another wacky Game Boy accessory that you could use to print out. I usually used it for like my Pokedex entries.
Yep.
But you could also print out your photos. On top of that, this also was really famous because it had a bunch of mini games, including a little chiptune maker. And I will tell you that a bunch of people use DMGs to make chiptunes that you can use, but this is really neat.
I just remember seeing a photographer who 3D printed an attachment for the Game Boy camera, which allowed him to use Canon EF lenses. And he got some of the wildest, beautiful shots. It was just fun. It was fun.
You know what else is fun, Matt?
Moving on to the next one.
WarioWare. So did you actually ever play this? Because I did not. All these cartridges are weird, but Nintendo specifically, they just like to throw all kinds of stuff. Now, if you've ever played any of the WarioWare games, they're all weird. The fact that this had not only force feedback, but also a gyro sensor, meaning that you had to like tilt everything around.
My favorite part about this one is so you could have like the Game Boy attachment for GameCube. So you could play it on the GameCube, but that meant if you had to pick up the GameCube.
You know, though, the GameCube had a handle. That seems perfectly reasonable. This is a great remnant of a bygone era where weird was in. And having all of this stuff built into a Game Boy Advance, man, it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's just, this was fun. You don't have fun things like this with games anymore. The closest thing, I guess, is like, you know, the DualSense with Astro's Playroom, but like, it's not the same.
And the fact that you could buy game cartridges that would have all these additional features meant that it was really something different. You weren't just downloading a game. Like, you actually had a legitimate different experience by adding sensors, features to the game, to your Game Boy. Man, all I'm gonna say is, let's bring back real game cartridges.
Moving on to the next one, the Genesis J-Carts. So these were made by Codemasters.
You could basically have 4 players because there's no multi-tap or anything for the Genesis. Oh, interesting. I've never even heard of these before.
Yeah, you could also, with micro machines, you could do 8. But this was a cartridge.
Now, obviously, there are only a few of these things. It came out late in the Genesis life cycle. But again, weird is good. You know what I wish I had?
What did you wish you had?
2 additional game ports.
You should have gotten a Genesis J-Cart or subscribed to the channel. See, I can call it out too.
What? Yoshi's Universal Gravitation, or Yoshi's Topsy-Turvy. So this had a built-in tilt sensor. So you actually could tilt the game area by tilting the Game Boy Advance. And this to me feels very Nintendo-y. Obviously, Nintendo have always been kind of open to weird and wacky kind of gimmicks for gameplay. This is one of those very late Game Boy Advance games. This came out in 2004. So that's actually around the era that the DS was already out.
I have a theory that this was like the beta test for the Wii.
Yeah.
For ages 3 and up. So like they were testing out like the simplicity of the sensors, which that's why I think it was like a beta test for the Wii.
Well, they could have included Kirby.
Or they could have been. No, I won't do it.
You see,
I won't do it.
I almost baited him into it, but he didn't do it.
Moving on to the next one. Sonic 3D Blast. Have you ever wanted to be playing Sonic, but also wanted to pretend like you're the Fonz from Happy Days? Well, this bad boy has got you covered. So this had a secret level in it.
Okay.
That the only way to get to it was by giving the cartridge a nice smack. A lot of cartridges would have like a fault detection or something like that. Yeah. And by default, they would just go to the menu screen if they detected that.
Sure, it would basically just reset itself.
Yes. If we thought that Sonic looked bad in the original movie, 3D Blast did not look good. But
so basically, the way this was meant to be played, if you really wanted to get to that, you could smack it, or I'm assuming you could just very slightly like pull it out of the cart slot and put it back in.
But that's not fun. Yeah, now you're getting it.
I'm about to 3D blast all over the subscribe button, and I'm gonna 3D blast your fingers into ring-a-ling the ding-a-ling bell. Now, have we 3D blasted the begging of the subscription? Well, yes, we have. But guess what? We got 400,000 subscribers now.
Yay!
There's only 8,999,600,000 people left on Earth who haven't subscribed to This Is yet. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your weird Aunt Bertha to subscribe to This Is, because otherwise she's gonna miss out on some 3D Blast, some Kirby's Nuts. What else could you ask for out of a YouTube channel in the year 2022?
Let us know what ones we forgot. We can always do another one of these when you do the work for us.